All right. So, you want first, right? Okay. So first, we got our final project, positive psychology, made by us. So let's continue on.
By us.
Our first slide is going to be about interpersonal relationships of Latin and South America. Our first bulletin will be their life, satisfaction, subjective well-being, and positive effect were all based the quality of friendships. Second bulletin would be their close interpersonal relations are a crucial step for individual growth. Last bulletin will be interpersonal relations between both low and high context cultures are not exclusively separate from one another. So our question for us was, what contributes to the differences or the difference in values? So we said was that Latin and South Americans place a strong emphasis on families, and following that, families are often they often live together, and including extended families, and also children grow up in households with their grandparents, and as well as celebrations frequently include family-oriented events.
Um,
So here we have what contributes to the difference in values. We have high context versus low context communication. So sources state that in high context cultures, information is provided through mainly gestures, the use of space, and even silence. The relevance of actions and words is also shown through status, which can include age, sex, education, family background, title, and affiliation. Um, Low context communication, on the other hand, um, contains most of the information uh, verbally, and very little is embedded in the context of the participants. So, their behavior. Um, Low context communication is more direct than high context communication. Um, Everything is typically stated with less meaning tied to proximity and behavior. Um, with individualism versus collectivism, it's much more prevalent in low context cultures. An individualistic person may depend less on an organization's support to have the right to property, thoughts, and opinions. Individual achievement and motivation are important to defining Western American culture. Collectivism, on the other hand, is a primarily high context um, culture because it's characterized by a person owing loyalty, respect, social norms, duty, beliefs, and cooperation to their respective groups. Sources state that in Eastern culture that values collectivism, identity is based on the social system, and the individual is emotionally dependent on families, institutions, and affiliations, um, and they are able to trust each other with group decisions. Equality versus hierarchy. Um, so equality tends to be more prevalent in Western areas. Social relationships are affected, ranging from both primary to secondary. Formality is less important in primary relationships. That would be including someone's close family or their household. Um, it's Formality is less important in primary relationships, but it's still valued more in secondary ones because, to an extent, those are still formal. Um, Interacting individuals within these relationships may have different status to each other, but still being able to maintain that conversational feel that Western culture usually does. Hierarchy, on the other hand, um, is an embedded part of high context culture. It's valued through all relationships and expected of one to conform to social status. Individuals that respect hierarchy may be aware of their responsibilities and obligations to individuals around them. We can observe signs of social hierarchy in nearly every setting. In schools, children They show a lot of respect and authority and ask very few questions. So, and here next we've got assertiveness and interpersonal harmony. And sources state that in a culture where individualism is highly valued, as it is in the United States, people are expected to take the initiative in advancing their personal interests and well-being, and to the direct assertiveness in interacting with others. Interpersonal harmony, on the other hand, tends to be more common in high context cultures because they are expected to work well with others and refrain from causing conflict of any sort. Slide. Okay. Probably this one's also very long. So the differences in operation when it comes to these two groups result in miscommunication, which for low context individuals, they usually prefer messages to be really definite and detailed. High context individuals usually prefer messages to be less detailed and more to the point, and this could result in parties becoming irritated with each other because of the difficulty of exchanging information. Miscommunication may also change how conflict is perceived and responded to. High context cultures privately approach conflict to save face, while low context, on the other hand, approach conflict very openly. Individualism and collectivism combined with a decision-making scenario might result in conflict again. Negotiation between these groups may result in a misunderstanding. Low context culture doesn't struggle to openly contradict or express their own respective views within their groups. However, high context would come to decisions as a group before approaching a decision. Equality and hierarchy, both cultures respectively may have more equality or hierarchy-based relations. However, in the same environment, the mixture of communication styles can bring about conflict because low context focuses on emphasizing equality, while high context focuses on trying to meet the needs of others. With assertiveness versus interpersonal harmony, individuals belonging to low context culture typically viewed as assertive, while high context culture stress avoiding conflict. That's why conflict between these groups may result in miscommunication, whether it be because the low context individuals were perceived as aggressive or high context individuals were viewed as uninterested because of the differences in their behavior.
Okay. Eastern psychological systems. Buddhism, Hinduism, Taoism. Do you want to? Did you do this? Okay.
So this slide is all about Buddhism.
Yeah.
Buddhism is a religion that was created around 2,500 years ago. The founder was Siddhartha Gautama. Centers around the idea of suffering and what causes the suffering. There is no God. This is sometimes referred to as a philosophy. This is all about Hinduism, and it is centered around the belief of the cycle of life. So that includes death, reincarnation, and karma. And there's also a strong belief in the soul. So this is Taoism or Taoism. And from what I researched, they're basically the same. It just depends on what you want to go by. So is one of two main philosophical discrimination, then harmony. And then it says Eastern psychological systems denote the highest state of spiritual and psychological development and transcendence.
There you go. Spiritual enlightenment. Eastern psychological systems donate the highest state of spiritual and psychological development and transcendence. Didn't you just say that? That's the same thing. Okay. Moving forward. Compassion. Eastern societies value compassion and empathy. Happiness is seen as an internal state of mind, intertwined with being responsible, respectful to oneself, family, and society. Harmony. Easterners prioritize harmony and balance. They recognize that both good and bad times are part of life and seek equilibrium rather than linear progress.
Can you read it?
I can do it.
There you go. Okay.
What is the prejudice of those who use these systems? So there are stereotypes, stereotype threat, discrimination and microaggressions, skin colorism, and dehumanization. So stereotypes include spirituality, mysticism, or healing practices. Stereotype threat includes pressure to conform to negative stereotypes. Discrimination and microaggressions include mistreating people based on their ethnicity or race. Skin colorism is a prejudice against darker skin. Dehumanization is a cultural difference or unfair practices.
So typical produce, if that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
So we got collectivist mindset, balancing perspectives, spiritual transcendence.
Mm-hmm.
Last one is silico view of life. I don't know how to pronounce that word.
Silical, I think.
Yeah, or whatever.
Something like that. It's
So
like
the
a
produce,
circle.
so the produce for collectivist mindset would be compromise or lacking personal agency. Balanced perspective would be indecisiveness or lack indecisiveness or lack of assertiveness.
Yeah.
Man, we got some long words. Oh my gosh. And spiritual transcendence produce mystical or impractical view of life